Hi and welcome to The Winning Factor. I'm Alan Aitken, and on this show each week we take a look at some upcoming races in Hong Kong and try to isolate an aspect of the race that might be the path to finding the winner. Well, big day's racing on Sunday at Sha Tin, two feature races, the Group 3 Centenary Vase and the first of the four-year-old classic races, the Hong Kong Classic Mile, and I'm going to deal with both of those races on our show today. Firstly, race 7, the Hong Kong Classic Mile, where our winning factor is the conditions. Now, this race is the first of the three four-year-old events with implications for the Derby in late March and with plenty of history to the race, and it's been a staging ground for many a top horse on the way up. The last two winners, Romantic Warrior and Voyage Bubble, as an example. Now, it's a race at level weights, so the argument is that the best horse wins, without the advantages or disadvantages of handicap conditions under which most races in Hong Kong are conducted. And I think there's a clear favourite this year in Helios Express from the John Size Yard, with his main danger, Helene Feeling. And I think there'll be chances given to the likes of How Deep Is Your Love, Beauty Crescent, and the very honest Chan Cheng Glory. First of all, let's take a look at the profile of the race, because I think there are a few clues to the outcome there. So this is the handicappers' ratings for the runners in this year's Classic Mile, and there is a really wide gulf in the handicappers' ratings of the runners between the top three and the rest. Helios Express, How Deep Is Your Love and Helene Feeling are the only three rated over 90 off their past performances, so under handicap conditions they would normally be giving away a lot of weight to these other runners, but under the conditions of this race, they're all on level terms. Second graphic I want to show you is the Classic Mile average rating. Now, that first indicator leads me to what is a change in the character of the race. Now, look at how the average rating of the Classic Mile runners has changed over time. Back in the days when the average rating was usually over 90 and even over 100, it was hard for lower handicap rated horses to even get in the field, let alone win it. In recent years, that average rating though has declined sharply, and this year's race is the lowest ever at 83.3. And those tables both point fairly and squarely at Helios Express with a 102 rating, and there was a time when just having a rating over 100 was probably just about enough to get him home in the race. When we look at the history of the race, here are the winners back to 2005, and on the right-hand side I've highlighted the handicap ratings of the winners and where they ranked in the field on that rating. There was quite a clear pattern of the highly rated horses being successful until the last couple of years, and that's put more doubt on that idea and lent support to the general view I have that the handicappers' ratings can tend to be more of a guide to the past than the future. For example, Romantic Warrior looked a future star going into his Classic Mile, but had only an 85 rating because he had just not had a chance to establish a big handicap mark in only a handful of starts before then. And that ties in with the change of dominance in the race from the horses which had previously raced overseas, horses we refer to as PPs, who won most of the runnings for many years, and a swing towards PPGs and ISGs, horses which had never raced before they started racing in Hong Kong. And that is to do with the previously raced horses having established levels of performance somewhere else, so they already came here with higher ratings. So this year the PPG and ISG groups are represented by How Deep Is Your Love and Chan Cheng Glory. Helios Express, well, he's a PP, and he certainly put the writing on the wall for this race when he won at his latest appearance, his first run beyond 1400 metres. This is race 324, and Helios Express, he's in gate 5 in purple colours, and what I want to highlight with him here is how he coped with the changing tempo during the race, as we can see on the heat map. Now, he jumps okay, but when there is strong competition for the early lead, Hugh Bowman steadies him. Now, the risk there was that he would over-race, being steadied over the longer distance, but although he's a touch keen briefly, He doesn't really fire up then or when the pace steadies in the second 400 metres quite quickly. And crucially, he never overdoes it, though he travels full of running. When he turns for home, Bowman still has a lap full of horse. He just needs an exit, and Helios Express sprints quickly to put his rivals away in just a few strides. And that ability to switch on and switch off and accelerate might prove very important here, even with the advantages he has as far as the handicap mark goes. Because I expect he'll be in front of his major rivals here in a race that may not be truly run. Now, we saw a good speed there. I don't think we're going to get that on Sunday. We've seen positive tactics from the likes of Chan Cheng Glory in moments in time, but they do look to have the lead to themselves. There are real tactical issues for others like Fallon, who drops out, How Deep Is Your Love from a wide gate, and Beauty Crescent, who is still doing himself no favours in the run by over-racing. And so it would be a mistake to bustle him early and get him fired up. The interesting tactical battle here is between Bowman on Helios Express and Zac Purton on Helene Feeling, who has been handy at 1800 metres lately, now has to drop back in distance. But I suspect Zac Purton won't want to hand a tactical edge to Bowman, and he'll be trying to get forward early, as he did when he rode this horse last season in his early Hong Kong starts. To what extent he can do that will be a key at the finish. But the tip from me in race 7, Helios Express, his winning factor, the conditions. Now, the ratings aren't everything. He does have a big advantage under the conditions, however, and his last start was enough to convince me that he might be adaptable enough to be able to cope with a different tempo, a different style of race, and really make that advantage count. The second race I want to take a look at is our other feature, race 8, and our winning factor here, the obvious. So this is a Group 3, the Centenary Vase, with a bit of history. It was once quite a regular Derby lead-up, but has been less so since switching back from 2,000 metres to 1,800 metres almost 20 years ago. But being a high-class handicap, it brings us that eternal argument about class versus weight. This is also the first full field the race has had since 2016. It's often a small field. I'm sure there'll be a case made for the top weight here, Hugh Bowman's Mount Straight Arron, whose trainer Casper Founds is looking for 3 successive wins in this race. But I think most interest will be in horses a little bit further down the handicaps, coming out of a similar style of race, the Group 3 January Cup at Happy Valley, including the winner there, Happy Together, also the runner-up La City Blanche, and Nimble Nimbus, who finished 4th, as well as Sword Point and Champion Dragon, who didn't really have the race work out ideally that night. So first of all, let's have a look at the Centenary Vase historically. Here are the winners back to 2005, and I've highlighted the horses to win with the bigger handicaps, and you can see that overall there has been a strong lean towards lighter handicapped horses winning, with those highlighted as the big weight winners, almost all Group 1 successes before this race, and we don't have any of those running on Sunday. It has been a race for those well favoured in the market though, with few surprises. So in summary there, punters have correctly identified the horses coming into the race with good form and with decent lower handicaps. And for me, that means we have to look more closely to the lead-up race, the January Cup at Happy Valley. Now, there would be a lot to watch because half the field ran in this race, but there are 3 in particular that I want to pay attention to. This is race 330, and Gate 3, purple colours, is Happy Together. Gate 6, Sword Point, in the light green and yellow colours. They jump well and are straight into handy trailing spots, while Nimble Nimbus, Gate 11, in black and red colours, is the one of the 3 that I want to look at, having more to do early. He has to work forward to get around to outside the heels of the leader during that one early section that was faster than average. The rest of the tempo is smooth, genuine, but not particularly fast or slow. That suits Happy Together, who is the last of the 3 to make his move and arriving at the right time. Sword Point, we see in the straight, runs into traffic Behind the leaders, he's a forgive run, and Nibble Nimbus, he boxes on very well for fourth after that early work. So excuses to some extent there for Sword Point and Nimble Nimbus, but a perfect trip ends up with a perfect outcome for Happy Together, who was winning his fourth race from 5 starts this season. And when we look at the map for Sunday's race, I think he's going to get a pretty similar kind of a run. Much of his success this season has been attributed to him being so tactically adept. He sits handy, he jumps well, he switches off when the jockey asks, and he switches on when the jockey requires, and has a little bit of a turn of foot as his winning punch at the business end of his races. And in Sunday's race, with a lightish weight from gate 2 and a slow beginner inside him, I think we'll see Happy Together in a very similar position. There are a couple of possible leaders here, Money Catcher and Champion Dragon, the most likely, but I don't really see competition for the lead, so the pace might be like the January Cup or even a touch slower, suiting those horses in the first half of the race. But the tip from me in race 8, Happy Together. His winning factor, the obvious. Now sometimes we play tricks on ourselves and look past the obvious, but here we have a horse who fits the historical profile of the race. He gets a great map. He's won 4 out of 5 this season, and he does everything right. I think he's going to be the one to beat again. Well, that's it from the winning factor this week. Good luck on Sunday. We'll see you next time.